Most people feel a quiet unease when they think about AI and the future of work. Not dramatic scenarios, not robots taking over the world. Something simpler and closer to home. The worry that one day, the work you depend on might no longer be needed. For a long time, we've been told not to worry. Every major technology, we're reminded, has eventually created more jobs than it destroyed. Machines raised productivity, economies grew, and workers found new roles elsewhere. That pattern has held before. But there's a difference this time. In the past, machines replaced physical effort. They took over lifting, digging, assembling. And in doing so, they made human thinking more valuable. Judgment, communication, and decision-making became our edge. Now machines are starting to perform those tasks too. They can read, write, summarize, respond, and decide. So the question changes. If machines can do both the physical work and the cognitive work, what exactly is left for human labor to trade? No one can predict the future with certainty. Technology has always surprised us, and economics is rarely neat. But we don't need to guess blindly. Some economies are already experiencing the early effects of this shift, and they give us a glimpse of what may come next. In countries like the Philippines and Bangladesh, AI isn't a distant concern. It's happening now. For decades, these economies built growth models around outsourced services, call centers, data processing, transcription, customer support, basic IT services. These jobs provided stable income and a pathway into the global economy. They were considered relatively safe because they required language skills, context, and a human touch. That assumption no longer holds. Modern AI systems can now perform many of these tasks faster and at far lower cost. They don't get tired. They don't require benefits. They don't scale linearly with wages. As a result, entire sectors that once supported millions of workers are suddenly vulnerable. Not because people failed, but because the math changed. In the Philippines, estimates suggest that nearly 9 out of 10 outsourced service roles face a high risk of automation. That's over 1 million livelihoods potentially affected in a short period of time. The broader implication is difficult to ignore. AI accelerates growth where capital already exists, while making it harder for developing economies to catch up. And this isn't limited to poorer countries. Even in wealthy nations, AI is reshaping labor markets unevenly. Some workers can use AI to amplify their output and become more productive. Others find that the tasks they were hired to do are quietly disappearing. Roles like cashiers, clerks, bank tellers, postal workers, and customer support staff are already shrinking. Projections suggest that millions of jobs could be eliminated over the coming years, with a large share of existing roles exposed to automation. At the same time, companies have invested enormous sums into AI development. Those investments come with expectations. From a business perspective, reducing labor costs is one of the fastest ways to improve returns. What feels threatening to workers often looks like efficiency to investors. This isn't about malice, it's about incentives. Firms respond to financial pressure in predictable ways. Put together, the trend is clear. AI is changing who gets ahead, who falls behind, and how quickly the gap between them grows. That raises important questions. Why does AI seem to boost growth in already rich countries while destabilizing others? If one person using AI can now do the work of several people, what happens to the rest? And can workers, or entire economies, adapt fast enough to avoid long-term damage? Research suggests that advanced economies stand to gain significantly from AI-driven productivity. The United States, parts of Europe, and East Asia are projected to see substantial growth. Lower-income countries, by contrast, are expected to see much smaller gains, reversing the usual pattern where developing economies grow faster. The Philippines is a clear example. For years, business process outsourcing has been a pillar of its economy, employing over 1 million people and contributing meaningfully to national output. But many of those jobs consist of structured, repeatable digital tasks, exactly the kind AI systems are learning to automate efficiently. Today, a majority of outsourcing firms in the country already use AI to cut costs and speed up workflows. For multinational companies, the calculation is straightforward. If software can deliver the same output faster and cheaper, offshore labor becomes less attractive. Bangladesh faces a similar challenge. Its outsourcing sector employs tens of thousands of workers, largely in customer service and data processing. As AI improves, the economic case for human outsourcing weakens. In practical terms, a small cluster of servers could soon replace entire office floors once filled with people. That possibility undermines the outsourcing-led growth model that many emerging economies have relied on for decades, and helps explain why global inequality may widen after years of gradual convergence. AI also rewards skills that are difficult to distribute evenly across the world. Building and training advanced models requires high-level education, reliable infrastructure, and access to specialized hardware. These resources are concentrated in wealthy countries. Even when workers in developing nations acquire these skills, many relocate to global tech hubs. This accelerates brain drain and weakens local innovation ecosystems. The result is a self-reinforcing cycle. Fewer startups, fewer mentors, fewer institutions capable of competing in the AI economy. Those least prepared for disruption are hit first. Those best positioned to benefit pull further ahead. This divide doesn't stop at national borders. Within countries, AI affects workers very differently depending on the kind of work they do. To understand why, it helps to distinguish between two roles technology can play. Historically, most machines complemented human labor. They made workers more productive without removing them from the process. A farmer with modern equipment could do more work, but human judgment remained essential. Productivity rose, and wages often rose with it. For many skilled professionals, AI still works this way. Analysts can process information faster. Doctors can focus more on patient care. Engineers can iterate more quickly. In these cases, AI increases the value of human expertise. But for routine, standardized tasks, AI behaves differently. A chatbot doesn't make a support agent faster, it replaces them. Automated code generation doesn't assist entry-level developers, it reduces the need for them. As capital becomes more capable, it requires fewer workers to function, and ownership of that capital is highly concentrated. Most major AI breakthroughs come from a small number of firms in the United States and China. These companies benefit from scale, data advantages, and feedback loops that reinforce their dominance. More users generate more data. More data improves models. Better models attract more users. This concentrates power and profits. While AI may add trillions to global output, most of that value is expected to flow to the countries and companies that control the technology. The hardware that makes AI possible is also concentrated, produced by a small group of nations. AI, as capital, primarily rewards ownership. Those who can use it to multiply their productivity become more valuable. Those whose work is easily automated face increasing pressure. None of this is shocking, and that's the point. Many people already sense what's happening. Surveys show widespread concern about job loss from automation. We've seen similar transitions before. From the 1980s onward, automation and globalization reshaped manufacturing. Millions of industrial jobs disappeared. Entire regions struggled to recover. Cities built around factories saw unemployment rise, health outcomes worsen, and social mobility decline. Progress continued, but the damage lingered. So what can be done? AI is already transforming the global economy. Whether it deepens inequality or helps address it depends on decisions being made now. Developing countries offer early warnings. Governments are experimenting with retraining programs, education reform, and digital infrastructure investment. Whether those efforts succeed remains uncertain, but they show what adaptation looks like. Wealthier countries face a parallel challenge. Investing in AI systems must be matched by investment in people, not just technical skills, but reasoning, communication, and judgment. Expanding digital access matters too. Billions of people still lack reliable internet, limiting their ability to participate in the AI economy at all. Social safety nets play a crucial role. They give displaced workers time to adapt, rather than forcing immediate decline. If productivity rises while incomes fall, economies weaken from within. Growth narrows. Inequality expands. Demand suffers. Ensuring AI benefits society broadly requires rethinking who builds it, who governs it, and how its gains are shared. The system isn't broken. It's responding exactly to the incentives it was given. Understanding that is the first step toward deciding what to do next. Thanks for watching.